From someplace over the Pacific Northwest, USA, this is a Space Dog Radio Show. I'm the Space Dog. Thanks for tuning in. Space Dog Radio, your remote location radio station. Available to you 24/7 from spacedogradio.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Space Dog Radio. Online with us right now, Mark Taylor-Canfield, a syndicated journalist who's been on The Ed Show, has written with the Huffington Post, among others. Mark, welcome back to Space Dog Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the state of Washington, where folks can marry their same-sex partner and give out free marijuana at the reception.
Very nice, very nice. Mark, you've been a busy guy. Tell us about the speech you did recently.
Yeah, there was the Occupy National Gathering that took place in Kalamazoo, Michigan through August 21st through the 25th. Another story that's really not getting coverage in the mainstream media. But activists from all over the country headed to Kalamazoo, and the reason they chose Michigan was because of all the economic austerity measures going on there, where the state and a lot of the metropolitan areas are actually bankrupt and being controlled by financial managers now. So the organizers from all over the country put this together. It wasn't just Occupy Kalamazoo. It was folks like Liz Meyer down at Air Occupy in Florida and other folks from around the country who, through conference calls and the website internet.net, put together this program. People from all over the country, also folks from Australia, Canada, and then one of the stories that's not really getting out, because every time I've done any kind of a mainstream meeting interview, they always want to know, well, you're going to get involved with electoral politics, because Jill Stein, the presidential candidate for the Green Party, was actually there and addressed the group. But in reality, what I found is that there's definitely no consensus on getting involved with electoral politics as far as I can tell. But there is definitely an outreach going on to other Occupy groups and other pro-democracy, anti-corruption groups around the country and around the world. So there were international discussions on the Mumble server with folks from Brazil and Europe and other parts of the world who also have been working on these kinds of issues, also suffering from economic austerity measures and lack of political power for labor unions, environmental groups. So the real emphasis seemed to be an international connection to all of these other groups that are going on. And also, before I forget, let me give a shout-out to the live streamers, because next month there's going to be the first ever international live streaming conference in Toronto, Canada. So a lot of the folks that have been following the Occupy Wall Street movement might be familiar with some of the live streamers like Tim Pool, Luke Rukowski, I Occupy, who have been live streaming, and also some of them have been raided and harassed by police during some of these events. But that sort of leads to another issue. I was asked by the organizers to give a teach-in webinar style about press freedom. And the reason for that is because the United States is currently ranked 32nd in the world on Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index. And anyone can find that information if you go to RSF. It's the French version of Reporters Without Borders, but rsf.org will give you all of this information. You can just enter the country that you want to look up and find out where their ranking is. Well, it turns out that this year Finland is actually number 1, but the United States has fallen behind. We were ranked, I think, number 19th a couple of years ago, and now we're at 32nd. That's an issue that we have to confront, and luckily the folks at the gathering were willing to take it on. So there is a webinar at my Ustream channel, which is MTC3000, for Mark Taylor-Canfield, MTC3000. It's a 3-part series there that people can take a look at. I admit I was kind of rough and slick at the time I did it, but I needed to get that information out. So it's a big issue, something that I'm not seeing the Society for Professional Journalism or the National Press Club or any of the main journalistic groups in the United States really taking on. But just to give the audience a quick heads up on why we've dropped in our rankings, one of the issues that Reporters Without Borders has cited was the arrest and harassment of reporters and live streamers at last year's Occupy Wall Street demonstration. And then, of course, this year we have the revelations about the government surveillance of Associated Press reporters. So that's also become an issue. Mainly, I see it as a result of corporate media consolidation, which is something that's been going on for years, and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is really pushing this, especially the Republicans, on that.
What was the takeaway from the conference that you were just referring to? What was the main go forward for the entire group?
I think that actually, surprisingly, sort of the main issues that people were concerned about was recent reports of government surveillance, especially of activists and journalists, and also issues with press freedom, which is something that people were really talking about there, just how to get real journalism happening in the United States. Just, by the way, Reporters Without Borders is a international advocacy group for journalists. And unfortunately, in their latest reports, 51 journalists have been killed in countries around the world this year, and over 340 have been arrested. There are countries where there's a state-owned media, state-run media, and the United States is not owned by the government. It's actually a corporate run. So that's the issue here. But I'd say that those two issues and this feeling that the Occupy movement is connected to sort of an international series of movements for pro-democracy and anti-corruption, I think those were the three takeaways that I took away with. I think, everyone probably had their own individual experience about what was happening. But it was pretty interesting watching all the live streams, participating on the web. So it did become sort of a web conference, too, which was great for people who couldn't make it to Kalamazoo. So there are folks all over the country doing great stuff under the name of, Occupy. But it's just not going to get corporate news media coverage this year because there aren't, tens of thousands of people in the street. Right now, of course, people are concentrating on the March on Washington, which is happening this weekend.
Mark Taylor-Canfield joining Space Dog Radio. Mark Taylor-Canfield, if people want to hear more from you, we're going to put a link on Space Dog Radio. Where can they find your information?
Well, I write at Truth Out, and I'm blogging at Daily Coast. I've also got blogs at Huffington Post. The easiest way to probably follow me is actually through my Facebook site and my Twitter account, where we'll be breaking news stories. And then I'm also a reporter at Free Speech Radio News on the Pacifica Network. So they're a really good news agency, reporter-managed, real investigative news agency, so that's a good place to go to. But Facebook and Twitter is where I post my breaking stories, so whatever I happen to be covering at the time will end up there.
Gotcha. Mark Taylor-Canfield, thanks for calling in Space Dog Radio. Appreciate talking to you, as always. For any of you who want to hear more about this, we'll put a link on spacedogradio.com. And, of course, you can follow Mark Taylor-Canfield on Twitter from someplace over the Pacific Northwest. This has been the Space Dog Radio Show. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be happy, and I'll catch you next orbit.